I have some very bad news for all the Bitcoin permabull optimists, and it's very unfortunate. I said this morning over on Twitter that we have completed 94% of Bitcoin's upside for this particular halving cycle. And everybody went crazy. They're like, Crypto Kid, how come you're saying this? Like, and what are you exactly basing this prediction off of? And I told them it's based off of two specific charts. And one of them I came across this morning and it completely blew my mind away. Before we talk about this chart and before we talk about why I think that Bitcoin could be topping out in September, I want you to destroy the like button on this video if you appreciate these daily updates. And guys, if you want to claim $1,000 completely for free worth of an Ethereum trade, go to the first link in the description down below, click the sign up button at the top right hand corner, and link your phone number to your account, download the Weeks app, log into it with your freshly created account, and claim your free $1,000 Ethereum airdrop. If you want a full tutorial video on how to do that, it will be the second link in the description. It's only 10 minutes long, and it's an incredible bonus which will be ending soon, so act fast. What is this mind-blowing chart exactly, Crypto Kid? Well, it is this, my friends. I have found out that the time it takes from Bitcoin to go from the exact low of the bear market to the halving, and then from the halving to the exact top of that cycle is the exact increment of weeks. So let me explain. On the Genesis cycle, you can see that to go from the bottom of the market to go to the halving, it took 55 weeks. And then from the halving point to the top of the market, it took also 55 weeks. The same thing is repeated in the second Bitcoin halving. It took 77 weeks for Bitcoin to go from its bottom to the halving, and then 77 weeks to go from the halving to the top of the market. It's again repeated in the third Bitcoin cycle, 75 weeks this time, and in this current Bitcoin cycle we're in, it is also 75 weeks. And ladies and gentlemen, that would take us to September 29th as the Bitcoin top. Guess what's also pointing towards a top for Bitcoin in September? The M2 money supply. The same M2 money supply that Bitcoin has been religiously following for the past year and a half with a 90.5% positive correlation. That is unbelievable. So I am very, very strongly believing in that Bitcoin has completed 94% of its upside for this halving cycle, and that in September, we're going to see some sort of a top. And when that time comes, I will be selling my Bitcoin. Okay, it sounds a bit scary. I know it sounds a bit scary, but let's break that down in a bit more detail. What about supercycle? What about institutions? What about nation states adopting Bitcoin and crypto? I know, I get it, but Bitcoin just doesn't care. Bitcoin only cares about liquidity. Supercycle is nice. It's nice that we're breaking above this multi-cycle resistance, but it doesn't necessarily mean supercycle. I don't think that super cycle is going to happen in this cycle, perhaps the next cycle or the one after, or maybe it's just a myth or a dream that we're all chasing. But what I do know is that Bitcoin follows liquidity, and liquidity is pointing towards a massive leg to the upside, which will represent the final 6% of this Bitcoin upside. And that's the caveat. The caveat is, yes, I know that we only have a very little amount of time left, like 2 or 3 months left before Bitcoin tops out. And we've completed 94% of the price appreciation that Bitcoin should see in this specific halving. But the caveat is that the next 2-3 months are going to present one more leg to the upside, and this final leg to the upside is going to be rather extraordinary. The liquidity is showcasing that Bitcoin could even go and surpass the $200,000 level. It's very tough to put a very accurate price prediction on exactly what price Bitcoin can go to, but around the $200,000 level does make a lot of sense. And the way that I'm preparing for this is by having Bitcoin long positions. In the short term, I think that a retracement to 110 to 109 is on the table. But overall, I think the next 2-3 months are going to point towards an incredibly bullish Bitcoin. So if you go to weeks and open low leverage long positions, I think that could be very profitable over the next 2-3 months. So that's my outlook for Bitcoin. I think that, yes, we've completed most of the cycle. I don't think that we're going to a super cycle. I think we're going to top very soon. But the final stage is going to be explosive for Bitcoin's price action. What does this mean for altcoins? Well, for altcoins, I have some very good news. The quite inverse, actually, because altcoins are still at almost bear market lows. And the reason is that capital is still very, very restricted within bank accounts of households. So Japanese families are currently sitting on a $7.5 trillion cash pile with 50% deposited in bank accounts. The similar situation is happening in America. They are expected to have about 5 trillion deposited in their banks, or they're holding 5 trillion worth of cash. And they're doing this because rates are still very high. It's just not worth the risk to take your money and invest it into equities or risk on markets when the bank is giving you a guaranteed yield of 4.5% per year. It just doesn't make sense for these families. But as soon as we get the aggressive rate cuts in Q1 of 2026, they will have no choice but to invest their money, because they would be losing their money significantly to inflation and the debasement of currency. So in Q1 of 2026 and the beginning of Q4, there's going to be an aggressive shift of capital going from banks into, I think, risk on markets. And altcoins are going to be a very major part of where capital flows into. When we look into the total crypto cap, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, we have a huge cup and handle pattern forming. I think this crypto cap chart can go into easily the 1.5 trillion range, and even the low caps can go into the 500 billion range. We have a golden cross on the mid to low caps. And the last time this happened, the last couple of times this happened, it catapulted the others crypto cap, which represents, like I said, the mid and micros. That catapulted it to the upwards resistance we have been forming for the past 2 cycles, and that currently sits at around 550 billion. So when it comes to your altcoins, I think they will do tremendously well. I think now is still an early time to be buying. I don't know for how long it's going to be an early time to be buying. Things like Ethereum, I have a lot of. Remember, you can go and claim a free $1,000 Ethereum position with the first link in the description below and long Ethereum. I think that we can go to 5.7 all the way to $8,000 in this cycle. I'm also very bullish on RWA, the Chainlinks, the Solanas, the Avalanches, the Ondo Finances, Solana, also beautiful cup and handle. I'm expecting $500 this cycle. So I think you're still pretty early. I know we're 94% done with Bitcoin's price appreciation, but the final 6% is actually what counts the most. So make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're watching every video, and don't give up, because I think the next few months are going to be incredibly rewarding. So guys, with that said, I'll see you all very soon on the Moon Show tonight. Take care, and I'll see you, well, I said that, but yeah, take care. Bye-bye.